In this video, I'm going to talk about another future tense, and that future tense is future perfect tense. In this video, I'm going to talk about another future tense, and that future tense is future perfect tense. So we can call it future tense or future perfect tense. Now, as is clear from its name, it's one of the perfect tenses. Before I start discussing about the definition, let's talk about the structures. Now, what are the structures of future perfect tense? So we have positive, negative, and the question structures, forms. First of all, the positive sentence. For a positive sentence, we use subject plus will or shall plus have plus past participle. Now, what is the past participle? Past participle is the third form of the verb. So this is how we can change how can we use the negative. So the negative is subject again plus will or shall plus not plus have plus third form of the verb or past participle. And for the question form, we can use will or shall plus subject plus have plus third form of the verb. And put the question mark, sorry. Now this is how we can how we can use the future perfect tense. Now these are the structures. The structures are subject plus will or shall plus have plus past participle, third form of the verb. For the negative form, we use subject plus will or shall plus not plus have, third form of the verb, and so on with this one. For example, by the time I come, you will have finished the job. Now this is the future perfect tense. You will have finished the job. And here we use shall. Shall is only used for I and we, okay, and will is used for the other subject pronouns. Or the second one, if I want to change it to the negative sentence, we can say, for example, you will not have finished the job. Finish the job. So you can write the rest of them. You can write, for example, by the time I come, you will not have finished the job. So remember here, so we have will and we have. Both of them are auxiliary verbs. And for the negative one, we use not after the main and the first auxiliary verb. For the question form, we can say, will you have finished the job? That's a question form. And for the other forms, we can also say, will you not have finished the job? Will you not have finished the job? And the last one, we can also say, will not you have finished the job? Finish the job. Now. So here, these are the structures. For the positive sentence, we use this structure. For example, for the negative one, this is for the positive one, for example. Here, this is the positive one. For the negative one, for the quotient, negative interrogative and negative interrogative. Now, this structure, when we use not after subject, so this is the formal structure. And this is, of course, is informal. We'll give more examples later. But remember, these are the structures of future perfect tense. We use subject plus will or shall plus have, third form of the verb or past participle. And we use subject plus will or shall. For the negative form, not. So remember, not comes before will or shall. You don't have to use it after have. If I say, for example, you will have not finished the job, it's wrong. We don't have to say that one. For the question form, we use auxiliary verb at the beginning, especially will or shall. And negative interrogative and negative interrogative. This is formal and this is informal. Now these are the structures of future perfect tense. Let's go and talk about the usages and the definitions of future perfect tense. Now, first of all, let's talk about the definitions and the usages of future perfectness. Look here, future perfect continuous tense. It is used to talk about an action. Is used, let's say, for example, used to for example, to express an action, or for example, a state that that will be completed before, for example, before another action or time in the future. So this is the first definition. Let me write it down. The first definition. So it is used to talk about or express an action or a state that will be completed before another action or time in the future. That's the first definition. Now remember, we discussed about tense. Tense is the time of an action. We have perfect. Perfect means complete, and future. So it talks about an action that will start in the future and will be completed before another action in the future tense. We use future perfectness. For example, let's consider this is a chart. This is a chart of tenses. Look, this is past, and this is present. This is future. Now, what does it show? This future perfect continuous tense, future continuous, future perfect talks about an action that will start and will finish before another action or activity in the future. For example, you start sleeping tomorrow, and when I come back, and then you say, by the time you come back, I will finish sleeping. Now here, action of sleeping will start in the future, maybe tomorrow, and it will finish before arriving. So this action will start and will finish before action of arriving in the future. So at that time, we have to use future perfectness. And mostly here, we use some words. For example, we use by the time, some phrases and some words. And we use, for example, by then. Sometimes we also use before, or we use, for example, when, or we can say by that time. We use, for example, by, let's say, by 30th, or let's say, for example, by 21st, or let's say 22nd, by June 22nd, or for example, let's say by June 6th, for example. Now here, sometimes we use these expressions to talk about the future tense. For example, if I want to say that the action of sleeping will start in the future and will finish or will be completed before action of arriving in the future. So how can I make an example? I can say, for example, here, by the time, this is actually conjunction phrase. By the time, I can say, by the time you arrive, I will have slept, for example. By the time you arrive, I will have slept. It means my sleeping will complete by the time you arrive. So the second definition, number 2, actually, we can also use future perfect tense can also be used. Let's say, for example, can be used for something. Let's say it can also be used for something that has probably already happened. By the present time. Now, this is actually the second definition of future perfect tense. Now, what does it show? It talks about something that has probably already happened by the present time. Here, from the past up to now, if you're not sure whether the action happened or not, but if it happened, actually we use present perfect tense. No? You can say he has finished the job. But if you're not sure, you want to talk about something that has probably happened, we have to use future perfect tense. For example, if I say, let's say they will have realized by now, that we are not coming. Now, what does this show? If I say they will have realized by now that we are not coming. Now, if this action by now, by this time, we're not sure, for example, they realize or not. So we can say they will have realized by now that we are not coming. We're not sure. So it has probably already happened. But if it has already happened, we use present perfect tense. But if you say probably, so we can use what? Future perfect tense. Or let's say, for example, let's say he will have, look, he will have, and for example, he will have found out, for example, he will have found out by now that we are, for example, not working. Now, with him, for example, you can say he will have found out by now that we're not working. Or another example, if I say you won't have been, look, you won't have been in our new house. So let me show you around. Let me show you around. Now in this sentence, actually, we can also use you won't have been in our house. I'm not sure whether you have been or not. Okay, so I can say you won't have been in our house as in our new house. So let me show you around. So we can also say that it has probably already happened before another action in the future. So we can use what? Future perfect tense. Now, this is actually the second definition. What about the third definition? When do we use the third definition of present future perfect tense? Now, the third definition of future perfect tense, let's say number 3. In number 3, actually, here, this is past, this is present, and this is future. Now, the third definition, it talks about an action that will start and will continue for a period, let's say, duration of an action before another action in the future tense. It is mostly used for steady verbs. Let's say, for example, they are used mostly with non-action verbs. If I want to talk about some actions in the future that will probably continue for a period of time before another action in the future, we have to use future perfect tense. For example, you can say he will have, look, he will have known, look, he will have known as for example, for 5 years by the end of, look, by the end of 2022. Now, by the end of this year, 2022, you can say he will have known us for 5 years. It talks about the duration of an action from past, now, in the future. By the end of that one, it will be how many years? It will be 5 years. We can say he will have known us. Or let's say, for example, she will have, look, she will have had her car, look, she will have had her car for 10 years. By, for example, by 2023. So this action will happen for 10 years. It means past, present, and future. We can use present perfect, future perfect tense, or we can say we will have, look, we will have lived in Kabul. Look, we will have lived in Kabul for 15 years by, for example, 2024. So this action of living, will have lived, we can say. So some actions can be used with both action and non-action verbs. For example, there are action and non-action verbs like live, like teach, like study. Not teach actually, study, learned, live and work. And non-action verbs, for example, know, like have, like understand these things. We have to use future perfect tense. Now, if I want to talk about the duration of an action verb that will start and will continue for a period of time in the future tense, so I have to use what? Future perfect tense. Now this is all about the future perfect tense. So we discuss about the usages. First one, it talks about an action that will start and will be completed before another action or time in the future tense. We use what? Future perfect. The second definition is also used for something that has probably already happened by the present time, through the present time, you can say. And this is the third definition, duration. Thank you very much.